Hey guys, this is Miss Abercrombie, and today we are talking about an author's point of view. Now, for this lesson, you're going to need your magazine like usual. You're also going to need your fluency passage, and obviously you're going to need your notebook. So go ahead and make sure you have all three of those things out in front of you before you get started. If you've got that stuff, let's go for it. Go ahead and set up in the left-hand side of your notebook. Go ahead and put the date and label it author's point of view. Now, at this point, you're probably thinking, wait a minute, point of view. We already did point of view, right? This seems kind of familiar. I thought point of view was that thing with like the first and the second and the third, right? Like the characters telling the story, or they're like talking to the reader, or the narrator's telling the story. I thought that was point of view. Well, as if the English language wasn't hard enough, some English teacher way a long time ago decided that there should be two different points of view. Right? That's awesome. So one type of point of view that we can talk about is first, second, and third person. But that's not what we're talking about today, because that usually really only kind of applies to fiction. Now, whatever nonfiction text you're reading will be written in first, second, or third point of view. But what we're talking about is something a little bit different. We're talking about the author's perspective. What is it the author thinks? What does the author feel? What's their opinion? Right? Those are the kinds of things that we talk about when we're nonfiction, when we talk about an author's point of view. What is their stance? What's their idea? What is it they believe about their topic? For example, if the topic of an article was school uniforms, right? The author's point of view would be whatever they think about school uniforms. Do they think school uniforms are good? Do they think school uniforms are bad? Do they think their school should have uniforms? Whatever the author believes and thinks and fights for, that's their point of view. Okay? Now we're actually going to watch a quick little video about school uniforms, and this is a news piece about a school that decided it wanted to have uniforms. So you're going to hear from a couple of different people. Each of the people in this video have a slightly different point of view. So make sure you're paying attention and seeing if you can catch how each of them feels slightly different about school uniforms.
The committee for some information to be presented on school uniforms. Fox 31's Colby Gallagher connects you to what the committee found during their research.
Students in Tift County might see more than a grade difference when they come back to school in August. School officials say they may create a dress code after a committee researched the safety advantages of wearing a uniform.
If the students are in a uniform, if there is someone that comes into your building that isn't supposed to be in your building, it's much easier to identify that person that does.
So what do we think her point of view about school uniforms are? Does she want them? Does she not want them? And why?
Doesn't belong.
They say other pros of implementing uniforms include less bullying and more of a focus on schoolwork than joining a group or clique. But not all of the research showed positive feedback.
They basically interfere with students' right to self-expression is one of the cons. They think that it prevents the students from actually being themselves.
So what does he think about school uniforms? How is his point of view different than the First Lady?
Despite the pros and the cons, the school board is leaving the decision up to the public. And on Monday, they opened an online survey that allows all members of the county to voice their opinion. While the survey results are private, Fox 31 reached out to the public to see what some residents think. Brian Zemish says, uniforms teach every kid that conformity is a good thing. I can't support that. Individualism is key to our success, not something to be frowned upon. But
So what is Brian's point of view when it comes to school uniforms?
Debbie McComas says would be a good reason to start a new business in town or expand a current one to support the uniforms. Also, you can always individualize your look, even with a uniform. I went to private school for a while, and it is possible to be an individual.
What does Debbie think about school uniforms? What's her point of view?
Residents can take the survey until March 21st. After that point, the board will use the results to vote on the issue.
Basically what we want to do is just lay it out. We don't want to voice an opinion one way or the other. We want the community to decide whether or not we want to have school uniforms.
Colby Gallagher, Fox 31 News.
All right, so in that video, there were multiple different people who had multiple different points of view on school uniforms. Anytime we have a topic, whether it's just a simple informational topic or something that's a little bit more controversial, each person who thinks about that topic and writes about it is going to write slightly differently. If you think about it, all four people in that video had four very distinct points of view. If we were to talk to Suzanne Lamb, she said that when students are in uniform, it's easier to tell when someone doesn't belong. So her point of view might be that uniforms make schools safer. If Suzanne Lamb wrote a paper about school uniforms, that would probably be the focus of hers. Reginald Phillips, on the other hand, said that they interfere with a student's ability to express themselves. So his point of view would probably be uniforms stop students from expressing themselves. That's what he believes about school uniforms. If Reginald Phillips wrote a paper about school uniforms, it would probably be very different than the one the other lady might write. It would have different facts, it would have a different purpose, it would have a different perspective, and it would have a different point of view. Brian would have an even different one. He thinks that it teaches conformity, which he doesn't think is a good thing. His paper would focus on very different things than the other two people. And the same thing with Debbie, right? She saw it from sort of the economic side. She thinks that uniforms would be good because they would help the economy and they would help students. So even though she agrees with Karen, or whatever her name was, that they're good, they would each kind of have a little bit of a different point of view because they think they're good for different reasons, right? So one topic, but more than one way to see it. That's basically what an author's point of view is. It's what the author believes or thinks or feels about the topic of the text. So authors can show you their point of view in a lot of different ways. First of all, they show you their point of view based on the evidence and the information that they include. If somebody feels positively about their topic, they're probably going to include mostly good facts, good information about it. If they feel negatively, they're going to try really hard to include all the negative information that they can find. Someone who feels really positively about their topic isn't going to spend a ton of time telling you all the negatives, because then you're not going to believe them that it's a good thing. They also choose the words they choose to describe it. If somebody feels positively, they're going to choose words that feel good. They're going to choose positive connotations, right? We've talked about connotation and denotation. They're going to use words with positive connotations to get their message across. If they feel badly about the topic, they'll probably use some words with some negative connotations. And what can be most important and hardest for kids to find is to think about what they choose not to include. If I were going to write an article about how schools are safer with school uniforms, but I find a survey somewhere that has some school that had uniforms that still had someone break in, I probably wouldn't include that. I would just happen to forget to put it in my paper because it's going to totally go against my point. Or if I was going to talk about why uniforms are good because of self-expression, and there was a quote from a student that said, "I don't feel like I can express myself," I might choose not to put that in there because it's going to make it harder for me to prove my point, right? Authors are going to choose to include information that helps and leave out information that doesn't. Because of that, if you've got multiple authors writing about the same topic, each of their writing is going to come out very differently, because as they have different points of view, they're going to choose to include and leave out different facts and describe things differently to get their point across and to back up theirs with the evidence that helps them the most. Okay, so let's practice this a little bit. Let's see if you can figure out what an author's point of view is when we're looking at a text. Now, the first step to this is to make sure you understand what all the different points of view might be. If you've got a topic, you've got to be able to think about, what might somebody think? And what might somebody else think that might be a little bit different than that first person? Because with any topic, there's multiple different ways to see it. For example, if we had the topic of wearing a helmet, right? Fairly simple topic. Should you wear a helmet when you ride a bike? Multiple different people might give you multiple different answers. One person might believe that everybody should be required to wear a helmet all the time. That would be their point of view. Helmets are very important. You must wear a helmet if you're riding a bike or riding a scooter or riding a skateboard. Somebody else might believe, nope, helmets are dumb. They don't look cool. They look really stupid. They're totally unnecessary. You shouldn't make people wear them, right? They would have a completely different point of view. Somebody else might kind of be in the middle. They might be like, helmets are good, but I don't think you have to require them. Maybe like require them for little kids, but maybe adults shouldn't have to wear one, right? And somebody else might even take it a step further and say, okay, helmets are good, but you shouldn't have to wear them all the time. Like if you're just riding around in your driveway, you shouldn't have to wear a helmet. But if you're going to be out in traffic, or if you're going to be like on a street or traveling a long way, then you should have to wear a helmet, right? One topic and multiple different ways to see it. Okay, so I'm going to have you do this for me real quick. I'm going to give you 4 more topics, and I want you to choose 2 of them. So texting and driving, ghosts, robots, and conserving water. And remember, conserving means like saving water, right? So looking at those 4 topics, just off the top of your head, which one do you feel like you could talk the most about? Which of those do you feel like you could see how multiple different people would feel differently about that topic? Okay? Pause for a second and go over to your notebook. Underneath the notes that you've taken, if you'll draw a line and give yourself 2 little bubble maps, just like the one that I filled out for wearing a helmet, right? Your topic needs to go in the middle, and then you need to come up with, for each of the 2 topics, 4 different points of view that would be possible for it. So what are 4 different things that someone might believe about texting and driving? One person might believe this about texting and driving. Another person might believe something else about texting and driving. Somebody might believe this about ghosts, while someone disagrees with them and believes something else about ghosts. Same thing for robots, same thing for conserving water. If you don't feel like you can do all of them, that's okay, because you only have to do 2. Pick the 2 that you feel like you can do the best, and go ahead and get that filled out on your paper. Okay, so you should have 2 bubble maps with 2 topics. Each of those 2 topics should have 4 specific points of view that someone might feel based about that topic. Okay, so once you've thought about what topic someone could believe, then you've got to go and think about what someone might actually believe. So draw a line underneath that, and if you don't have room at the bottom, you can put this at the top of the next page. It won't take too much writing, but you need 4 lines. You'll probably just need about 1 line for each of these. I'm going to give you a couple of paragraphs, and I want you to tell me what the author's point of view is in that paragraph. So you'll need 4 spaces because you're going to do 4 paragraphs. Okay, so once you figured out what somebody might believe, then you have to figure out what they actually believe, right? And to do that, you've got to look at the writing. You've got to identify what are they talking about and how do they describe it, because the descriptions they use, the facts they choose to include, are going to be how you can figure out what they believe about that topic. So let's go back to helmets for a second. Here is a passage about helmet safety. The title of this passage is Hard Facts About Helmets. So let's read this real quick and see if we can figure out, what does the author believe about helmets? What is their point of view on helmet safety? Now, this is an example, so you don't need to copy any of this down. If you like recreational activities that involve wheels, concrete, or asphalt, then protect your brain by wearing a helmet. Helmets with a CPSC approval are good for biking and inline skating and are available in most sporting goods stores. Multi-sport helmets with a Snell B95 approval are designed for skateboarding, roller skating, and riding scooters, as well as biking and inline skating. Snell B95 rated helmets provide more protection, but you may need to check out more stores to find one. Some people don't wear helmets because they think helmets aren't cool. If you're shopping for a helmet, there are lots of options, so you can pick out your favorite color. Or decorate a helmet with stickers and reflectors to show your personal style. Helmets are designed to help prevent injuries to your head, because a serious fall or crash can cause permanent brain damage or death, and that's definitely not cool. So what does this author believe about helmets? Do they think helmets are good, or do they think helmets are bad? Well, I would say they definitely think they're good. So what do they think about it? What do they mean when they say that helmets are good? I might say that this author thinks it's important to wear helmets. Yeah, that seems like it. They think it's important to wear a helmet if they're biking or skating or doing other wheeled activities, right? They mentioned scooters and skateboards and stuff too. So if I were writing this down, this is what I would be writing, right? This is my author's point of view. It's important to wear a helmet when biking, skating, or doing other wheeled activities. That's what this author believes. Okay? So let's look at this one for real. This next one is your actual one that you need to do. So the topic of this passage is texting and driving, and the title is Distracted Driving Shatters Lives. Teenagers are dying and being injured every day because too many drivers are focused on using a handheld phone instead of on the road. Motor vehicle crashes are the leading cause of death for U.S. teens. Mile for mile, they are involved in 3 times as many fatal crashes as all other drivers, and 1 in 3 teens who text say they have done so while driving. 16% of all teen drivers involved in fatal crashes were distracted while driving. Help prevent the loss of more lives. So what does this author believe about texting and driving? Texting and driving is the topic, so their point of view is going to be whatever they believe about texting and driving, the thing that they spend the most time arguing for. So to pause for just a second and look at this. Here are some words that might help you, right? If you're writing a point of view sentence or a point of view statement, you might want to use some words like believes or does not believe. The author believes blah, blah, blah. The author does not believe blah, blah, blah. The words important or unimportant might help. The author thinks it is important to. The author thinks it is not important to. Should and should not also can help. The author thinks people should blah, blah, blah. Scientists should blah, blah, blah. Or they should not. You might need to use the word because to explain it if the author is sort of saying something a little bit more complicated. Or you might need to use words like but or however to be able to explain they think this, but they're not exactly sure. Like, you should have helmets because helmets are good, but it shouldn't be a law, right? So those words might help you when you're writing your main idea, or your point of view statement for these. So take a look here and go ahead and write a statement for this passage. Okay, so if you've got your statement for this one, we're good to go. If not, pause the video for a little while longer. And let's look at the second one, right? I think from here on out, you're good to read these on your own. The topic of this one is conserving water, and the title is A Guide to Home Water Efficiency. So go ahead and pause it and read it to yourself real quick. Okay, so if the topic of this passage is conserving water, saving water, what does the author believe about saving water? Should you save water? Should you not save water? Should you save water but also do this, or save water if it means you need to do this? Right? Take a second and write your statement for this one. Okay, again, if you're moving on with me right now, you should have your statement for 1 and 2 taken care of. Ghosts. Let's see what this author thinks about ghosts. Ghosts is the topic, and how do scientists investigate claims of ghost hauntings is our title. So go ahead and read this to yourself. So what does this author think about ghosts? What is their point of view? Do they think ghosts are real? Do they not think ghosts are real? Do they think ghosts are stupid? Do they think ghosts are awesome? What do they think? Okay, and again, if you're moving on with me, you should be 1, 2, and 3 down. And last but not least, robots. This one is called Robots in Space. So see if you can get that one. Okay, so what is the author's point of view here? What does the author believe about robots? Okay, so you should have something down for 1, 2, 3, and 4. I am not giving you the answers to these. I'm going to grade these as part of your assignment. So if you feel like you haven't done the best job because you were waiting for me to just give you the answer and write it down, go back, review, and make sure you've got really good solid answers for all 4 of these. Okay, so assuming that you've got that, we're going to do something a little bit deeper with these, because identifying the topic and identifying the point of view is one thing, but being able to back it up is a whole lot harder. So let's go back to this one on helmet safety, right? We said that the author's point of view here was that it was important to wear a helmet when biking, skating, or doing other wheeled activities. The question now is, how do we know that? How does the author show us that point of view, and what details or information do they include that back that view up? Well, let's see. They talk about things like protecting your brain. They identify things like what you should do if you think they aren't cool, because then that'll encourage people to wear helmets even if they think they're not cool. And it talks a lot about how you can get hurt. It gives you some details about that so that you definitely are encouraged to wear them, because those sound like bad things you wouldn't have to have happen. So the evidence here are the things like what I've underlined. You know, if you protect your brain by wearing a helmet, right? Protecting your brain sounds like a good thing, sounds like something you want to do, so they included that. They talked about what to do if you don't like helmets to sort of encourage people to do that. And they gave you some facts that it prevents injuries, that a fall can cause permanent damage. They described what can happen to you in a really negative way to make you feel positively about preventing those things from happening. They even went so far as to say that not wearing a helmet isn't cool. Right? So if I were going to put this on my chart, just like you're going to do in a minute for your assignment, it would look something like this. So the title of this is Hard Facts About Helmets. The topic is helmet safety. The author's point of view is that it's important to wear a helmet when you're biking or skating. Now the evidence. What evidence do we have for that? Well, the first sentence says that you should protect your brain by wearing a helmet. Number 2, they give ways to personalize your helmet in case someone thinks helmets are uncool, like with colors or stickers or reflectors. And they said helmets are designed to prevent injuries. A serious crash or a fall can cause permanent brain damage and death. They gave you facts about the bad things that can happen to encourage you to prevent those things from happening. Right? So I want you to notice this is a lot of specific information. I've given 3 specific details from the text, and each of them is very, very detailed. I've quoted the text, or I've done a really specific job of telling you exactly what the author said. This is what I'm looking for from you today. If you don't give me multiple pieces of information, and if you aren't specific with your information, I'm not giving you credit. I'm going to ask you to go back and do it again, because you can't prove to me without that evidence that you've understood the author's point of view. So let me show you one more example just to make sure you've got it. If I were doing this with ghosts, this article about ghosts, if I had to sum up what the evidence was and what the author thought, the author of this one really isn't like super pro or super con. They don't think like, oh my God, ghosts are amazing, I totally believe in them. And they're also not like, ghosts are stupid, no one should think it. They're kind of like almost what we call neutral, like they're not positive or negative, but they think that scientists don't know, but they think scientists should find out, right? They think it's important for scientists to continue researching and continue trying to find proof, even though we don't have any now, right? How do I know that? How do I know that this author thinks that scientists should keep studying ghosts to try to figure it out? Well, he says there's no proof, right? He comes right out and says that, but he also says, if they keep looking, we may know the truth someday. Right? So I've got, there's no scientific proofs of ghosts and hauntings, and I've got, it'll be a long time before we know anything, but they should keep looking because we might know the truth one day, right? In this one, though, what's really, really important is what's not here. A lot of times when people talk about ghosts, people will sort of like belittle other people who believe in it, right? They'll be like, oh my God, ghosts aren't real. I can't even imagine how you would think that. Oh my gosh, that's so stupid. This author doesn't do that. They don't include any negative things about ghosts. It's all either really positive or it's just kind of neutral and factual. There's no negative information in here at all. The author chooses not to put negative information in because they don't feel negatively about the topic, right? What the author chooses not to include can be really, really powerful and tell you a lot about their point of view. So if I were going to fill my chart out for this one, again, my topic is scientists hunting ghosts. My title is How Do Scientists Investigate Claims of Ghost Hauntings. My point of view was scientists don't know if ghosts are real or not, but they should keep trying to find out. And then what's my evidence here? Well, they said there's no scientific proof of ghosts and hauntings. They said it may be a long time before we know anything for sure, but if paranormal investigators keep searching, we may know the truth someday. And then most importantly, the author doesn't include any negative words or any facts or call ghost hunting things like fake or dumb. This shows that the author feels positively, or at least just kind of neutral and unbiased about ghost hunting, right? What they chose not to include was really, really important here. Okay, so this right here you are about to do with your passages and in your notebook. So let's go over to your notebook and set this up. You need author's point of view practice, and then you need 4 columns. Title and topic can be pretty small. Author's point of view, you may want to have a little bit bigger, and then evidence should be as big as you can make it because you're going to be writing a lot in that column. Okay, so the first thing you're going to put in this chart is you're going to choose one of the passages that we've not yet done. Don't write down one passage. That's not what you're going to do. You're going to write the title of the passage, right? So we've covered 2 of the passages. There's 3 more that you have to choose from. You can choose from texting and driving, robots, or conserving water, right? So take a second and choose one of these 3, whichever one you feel like you understood best, to add to your chart and complete. For this, whichever one you choose, you need to make sure you put the title. The title is what's in yellow. You need to put the topic. That's what's in blue. You need to figure out what you think the author's point of view is, which, hey, should already be on your sheet because you did this earlier. And then you need to come up with the evidence. You need at least 3 really specific, really detailed pieces of evidence. Quote the text or do a very good job of summarizing what the author said. You need 3 specific details. Number them, please, so I can see where they are about whichever one you choose. And one more thing, if you can't see this, if this is too small for you on a screen, especially if you're looking at this on like a tablet or a phone, I'm going to link each of these 3 down below so you can exit out of the video and go back to my website and look below the video, and I'll have each of these in text for you there if you need to see them a little bit bigger. So take a second, pause the video, and get this done and added to your chart. Okay. So now you should have one of your paragraphs added to the chart. You're going to do this with 3 more sources. You're going to do this for your primary article, whichever one is your long main article in your magazine. You're going to do it for a second article in your magazine, and you're also going to do it with your fluency passage. So you're doing the same exact thing for each one. What's the topic? What is the author's point of view? What does the author feel or think about that topic? And then what evidence do you have to back it up? And again, please make sure you remember I'm looking for 3 pieces of evidence, and they need to be really specific and really detailed for you to get credit. Okay, so one more time, take a look. There were quite a few things we did here, so make sure you've got all of them. Make sure you've got your notes. Make sure you've got these bubble maps with some possible ideas. Make sure you've got the 4 that you did for each of those paragraphs. Make sure you've got this filled out for one of your passages, and make sure you're ready to go to start on these 3 here, right? That's a lot of parts, and you got to have all of them to get credit, so double check that you've got everything before you move on. Okay, so one last time, you need to make sure you've got the chart filled out for the passage. Then you need to do the same thing with your primary article, your second article, and your fluency passage. You need 3 specific details, specific evidence from the text to decide on the point of view that you decided on. You will not get credit without 3 pieces of evidence, so it's in your best interest to go ahead and do it now. Otherwise, you're going to have to end up redoing it anyway. Cool? If you've got questions, as always, feel free to raise your hand and ask. Otherwise, good luck, have fun, and we will see you next time.